how do I even put this into words? So it's like people have assumptions rather, about how things will turn out once a certain thing is set in stone or set in a certain way. So say like you have a legislation and you enact it, but there's results that come of that. There's a effect for the causes that you enact. And like in order to know for certain that you're right, you have to in a sense subject yourself to what can only be approximated as like a certain type of hell, right? Because then you see what truly happens as a result of those things that you enacted. So you set them in place and you just let them go. And then as time goes on, you enact more stuff down the line. Or no. You just enact like a certain principle. You enact like a certain principle and you just let it play out. A certain belief, a certain philosophy. So like this timeline that I'm in is like abiding by the philosophy of just catering to the feminine urge, right? This modern day timeline I'm in, it's all catering to the feminine needs and wants. That's why we have affirmative action. That's why we have so many things, right? And like the dating market hasn't changed in forever. Women don't change their dating standards. They don't change a lot of their behaviors. They adapt to some modern principles, of course, just so much as to just, get a job or get the career they want. But like intrinsically, nothing really changes about them. And the reason why that is because a certain something of a principle is set in place and it's just being played out to the worst possible extent. And so, like, say you have a claim and you say, doing it that way is going to lead to so and such. And the person who enacted the thing, who wants to enact the thing, is disagreeing with you, saying that no, that's not what's gonna happen. So like there's two like possible outcomes, right? There's the good, which is the person who wants to enact the thing, who has the positive belief, and then you, who you don't wish to enact the thing, and you have a negative belief. You believe it's going to be like mostly negative outcome, and they believe it's mostly positive outcome. And you know you're right, but the person on the other side also believes that they're right as well. But there's no way to say for certain who is right until the thing is just allowed to play out. And so, like, you hold a simulation. You hold a simulation so that you can know, everyone can know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, with absolute certainty, of what will happen as a result of that thing being enacted that the person with a positive belief wants to enact. And so you make the simulation, you set it in place, and boom, you start it. You just let it run. And then you come back to it later, and you see how it's going, and you see who has more points, the positive or the negative, who was hitting the mark more often and more accurately. Yeah. Or perhaps you go one further, because it's one thing just to see that from an overhead perspective, but then like you inject a person in the midst of that simulation so they can have the feeling of the air of the situation, because that's entirely different. It's one thing to be overhead and having the knowledge that you can just drop the stuff and just walk away from it and not have to deal with it, you know? But it's another thing entirely when you're in the midst of it and you're having to suffer through it. Because you can't just drop it and just walk away and just live your life to what would essentially be heaven in comparison. You don't have the option of that. You have to live in this thing. And so, like, you have to adapt all of your cognitive faculties to it. There is no getting out of it. You're stuck in it. You're setting it for the long run. And that's an entirely different thing. Because you have a different perspective. And this is all about perspective. Because it's like getting the feel of what comes as a result of this certain principle being enacted the way it was enacted. It's all about the emotion. Registering the air in the atmospherics. So, yeah, it's something like that. It's something like if the person with positive belief wins, then the person with the negative belief also wins because everything's turning out better and it's getting better. And even if the person with the negative belief has some beliefs about what women deserve and what they think and whatever have you, they are still winning because it's a tide that lifts all boats, right? But if the person with a negative belief doesn't win but is right, then nobody wins because everything goes to shit. Because he can't change what the principle that has been enacted that the simulation is based off of. He can't change that, the person with negative belief. He has to suffer through it and see what is like what fruit is, bore, or how is it, the results that come of this, of that action, of this, principle being acted the way it was. You shall know them by their fruits. So that's a tough cookie. That's a tough pill to swallow. Person of positive belief, they're right, everybody wins. Person negative belief, they're right, nobody wins. Everybody loses because it turns to hell. It turns to hell in a handbasket. And I think even in that situation, the person with negative belief, what feel goods he would have gotten from normally being right, like being, being venerated for his, his opinions, for being right, essentially, like, like, congratulations, you're right. I think all of the feel goodness would, like, just kind of neutralize itself because of just the absolute horridness of the situation that Theo's having to go through about being right, because he was the negative believer. He was saying, if you do this, bad things are going to happen to it because of X, Y, and Z. So, in a way, I really relate to this thought that I'm having, because I kind of feel like I'm living that out right now. The situation with women, and how horrific everything has become because we don't want to hold them accountable, which is only going to get worse. It's a guaranteed at this point that it's only going to get worse. I can see the road ahead, and it only veers to one side. It keeps veering to one side. It's only going to get worse. So, I can't help but feel like, that's like kind of the situation I'm in right now. I've stopped saying "I told you so," because "I told you so" doesn't make me feel any better anymore. I wish it did, but at this point, it kind of makes me feel bad because things are starting to get real bad. And so, like, before now, in the past, when I said "I told you so" when it came to this kind of stuff, it would be like, ha ha ha, well, whatever. They'll be fine. They'll be fine. It's fine. It's like, oh, they just feel slightly better. No, it's like now it's getting to the point where, excuse me. Now it's getting to the point where actual suffering is happening now, and men, young, short men who have no control over their own genetics, that demographic is now killing themselves at over 6.5 times the rate of all other demographics. And at that point, I don't feel good saying "I told you so" anymore. At that point, if anything, I would feel worse after saying "I told you so," while that is in the side of you. Quite a conundrum.